Hey, hi, and hello. Welcome back to the channel. If you saw my video a couple of weeks ago talking a little bit about vinyl records, brief mention of cassette tapes, and really some dialogue around CDs, you may recall that I mentioned that I believe that CDs are really kind of the peak, the pinnacle of physical music media. And one of the things that I mentioned in there is that I don't do any streaming, not only of music. I don't use Spotify, I don't use Amazon Music, no Apple Music. I don't even use Pandora. I use Pandora actually probably pretty prominently 10-ish years ago, but really haven't used it in that amount of time, and have never used any of those other services. But one of the things that comes up in conversation a lot, and a phrase that I hear is that from folks is that I couldn't survive without Spotify, for example. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think one of those reasons is people perceive that ease of access to their music and that variety as things that are almost irreplaceable and things that Spotify has potentially kind of a monopoly on. But from my perspective, that's simply not true. And I would argue that Spotify doesn't even do it the best. I will still contend that CDs and the ability to digitize CDs will outrun Spotify 7 days a week. So wanted to just kind of reinforce that a little bit, talk about my digitization method and the device that I use to actually consume those CDs and that media, and then just do a quick review of my Melcat haul for the week through my library, and show some of what I'm going to be putting on my player, some of what I'm listening to. I go to the library once or twice a week and drop off maybe the previous week's CDs and pick up a load or two depending on how much I've ordered, what I'm listening to, etc. So to get started, the workflow of digitizing CDs is really pretty simple. Any computer with a disk drive can do it. I was using Windows Media Player Legacy up until just before Christmas, when it looks like, as best I could tell, the servers that actually pull the album information were taken offline. And what that means is when you put a disc in, it will no longer automatically recognize the artist. It won't recognize the tracks, the titles, all the information that you would be looking for. So you had to input that manually. That's a pretty frustrating and time-consuming process if you're doing, a couple dozen CDs a week. And at that point, I was actually still digitizing a large portion of my collection. So I was in some cases doing a couple hundred a week. So I've moved from the Windows Media Player Legacy to MusicBee. MusicBee is a little bit different, but it rips CDs just as effectively. So once I rip those CDs to my MusicBee or media player library, I'm then just putting them directly onto this MP3 player. This is an AGP Tech, one of their models. This is a non-Bluetooth model, 64 gig. Really essentially identical in form and function to an iPod Nano, an early gen iPod Nano. There's no Bluetooth on here. It's USB-C charging, has a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and has a slot for a micro SD card. So this is a 64 gig model that's expandable by, I believe, an additional 128 gigs through the SD card slot. I haven't even needed to come close to dipping into that yet. I think I've got 5,000 songs on here or so. I think a couple hundred artists, around 5,000 songs, all songs, 4,001 actually. And I still have, I think, just around 50 gigabytes free. So this was a extremely cheap piece, around $22, I think, on Amazon. The charge lasts for easily a week for me, listening for, I use this on all of my bike rides, oftentimes if I'm cleaning the house, whatever. I can get probably close to 80 hours of playtime on this thing before I charge the battery, which is insane in my eyes. Two main downsides to a player like this, really. A, the screen scratches pretty easily, and then B, it's not super intuitive from a file format standpoint if you want to make playlists. To make playlists and use them on this device, you have to put your files into a folder on your computer and name that playlist and then import it as a folder, as opposed to being able to select tracks from the player. However, I primarily have moved to listening to albums front to back, so this works quite well for that. Some of the CDs that I have gotten this week that I'll be loading onto my player over the weekend include Concrete Blonde's Recollection. I'm a big Concrete Blonde fan. I believe there's only one new, maybe two new tracks on here that are not on other albums. However, I again mentioned that you can't create playlists super easily on this AGP Tech player. So one of the ways that I can get around that is by getting collections or best of albums. So in this case, this has a lot of my favorite tracks from Concrete Blonde all in one place. So I'll be able to listen to this album front to back and not have to create a playlist. And I have so much space on that player and on my hard drive that it doesn't make a difference. So pretty excited about that one. We got Tech N9ne Special Effects. This is a decent album. Tech N9ne I go back and forth on, but ultimately I don't have a lot of rap or hip hop in my collection of albums that I own, so just something different to add to the bucket. We pulled MTV Unplugged Alice in Chains performance, top tier performance. Excited to have that one. We've got Nothing But Thieves, self-titled. A bunch of great tracks on here, including Trip Switch. They didn't have the one with Amsterdam available. I can't remember which album that is, so when that becomes available, I'll probably get that one on order next. I was super excited to see that one of the libraries in Michigan, can't remember which one, Dearborn. The Dearborn Library had the Alice in Chains Music Box collection, which is a 4-disc collection that has a bunch of different demos, different versions of songs. So this will have Social Parasite on it. It'll have the demo of Bleed the Freak. This has the Sea of Sorrow demo, as well as some of the early recordings of Rooster and some of the other tracks that recorded as the same time as Sap and Jar of Flies. So excited to have that. This goes for big bucks on eBay. I'd actually looked at purchasing it a while ago, but just couldn't bring myself to spend the $250 that'll come to oftentimes on eBay. So this way I can get it for free, have it for a week, put it on my computer, and then I have it essentially forever. We've got Shawn Mendes here, also from the Dearborn Library. No particular reason behind this one. Sometimes it's just nice to fill out your collection of late 2000s pop, even if it is mediocre sometimes. Something different to listen to. We pulled the Amity Affliction, Not Without My Ghosts. This is not at all my favorite album of theirs. However, there's a couple of good tracks on there, and again, something different to listen to. Oftentimes I'll get albums that maybe I only really like one or two songs on, and then I'll just give the whole album a pass to see if there's any gems or diamonds in the rough there. We've got of course the front's all covered in stuff here, but we've got the possibly the most overhyped now due to Stranger Things 80s pop album of all time, Kate Bush's The Hounds of Love, with of course basically the Stranger Things theme song of Running Up That Hill. I've actually never listened to this album in its entirety. Been a fan of that song for years though, so excited to listen to the whole thing. Another interesting one, Hard to Find 45s. So this just has a bunch of, 70s pop kind of mix on it. So not entirely sure everything that's on here, but I know there were a couple of particular tracks I was looking for. Can't find, what was I looking for? Oh, Right Back Where We Started From by Maxine Nightingale was one of them I was looking for. So sure, there'll be a bunch of good listens. And again, something interesting to listen to. Coming up next, we also pulled the Simple Minds Best Of. Big Simple Minds fan. And the easiest way to get all the tracks I was looking for was by pulling their Best Of album. Hotel Diablo by MGK. I wouldn't say unapologetically a Machine Gun Kelly fan. However, I'm a big fan of Hotel Diablo, General Admission, and Lace Up. Actually had the chance to see him with Young Thug during his Hotel Diablo tour. That was a pretty good show. Not really a fan of anything he's done since then, though. We actually have Jar of Flies here by Alice in Chains. Killer album. Marianne Faithfull, another great album. This is, I believe, a compilation album of some kind. A Perfect Stranger. I guess maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't know well enough to know whether this is a compilation album or not. But ton of tracks on that one. Again, some variety into the collection. And then Two Door Cinema Club. This is Tourist History. So this one has the absolute banger, What You Know. Big alternative hit in the early 2010s. So this is pretty good stack of albums. And again, from a convenience standpoint, these all show up to the library a couple blocks away for free. I have a library card, live in town, and I'm able to get onto the website and order up to 50 CDs at a time. So like I said, 2 to 3 trips, and this will take me maybe 20 minutes to rip, and then I'll have them on my player. So really, again, kind of an example of why I still firmly believe that CDs are the top tier digital medium, and ultimately one of the best ways that you could be consuming music media. Certainly an advocate for continuing to use them. Supporting the library is always a great thing. And it's just a great way to find different stuff. There's so much on streaming services that you can just get bogged down, kind of get siloed into your own niche. So I tend to read a lot about different music. I tend to watch a lot of YouTube channels that are discussing different music. So always finding something interesting, looking for something interesting, and then loading them onto my MP3 player that, is just a couple inches long, 1.5 inches wide, can go with me just about anywhere. Super easy to carry with. No internet, no ads, and best of all, I'm not supporting Spotify or any of those other goobers. So if you have any interesting music recommendations, I'd love to hear it. I'd like to start doing kind of a library unboxing video on a weekly-ish basis, just talking about what I'm listening to that week, what I'm pulling out of the library this week. So we'll see how it goes. Otherwise, thanks for watching.